great to be here. It was great for me to be able to get in here so quickly after the election, the enormous election that Prime Minister Modi won. Having run a few campaigns myself, it was incredibly impressive. And the mandate that he's received, I think, is incredibly important. Minister Jaishankar, it's great to be with you. It's great to have a chance to spend as much time as we had here today. I know we'll get a chance to do that regularly and frequently, and I very much look forward to that. I'm confident that we have the benefit of building on a strong foundation between two of the world's great democracies. We saw this in the election. We saw this incredible democratic vigor and lead to a wonderful outcome. In recent decades, our relationship has made real strides, but there's an awful lot more that we can do together. And we had a chance to talk about each of those big strategic opportunities between two great countries. We can, in this context, see each other not just as bilateral partners, but as something much bigger than that, as friends who can help each other all around the world. In addition to conveying President Trump's best wishes today, I also had the chance to discuss with Prime Minister Modi these historic opportunities, and I'll elaborate on our potential in the speech at the India International Center a little bit later this afternoon. In fact, I can say that the U.S.-India partnership is already beginning to reach new heights. We've bolstered our defense cooperation. We've solidified our common vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific, and we've grown cooperation in energy and in space and in other areas. I know, too, we'll have another opportunity to expand these bonds when Acting Secretary of Defense Esper and I welcome Foreign Minister and Minister Singh to the United States later this year for the second ever 2+2. I will have then been a part of 100% of the strategic 2+2 dialogues. The United States is committed to ensuring that India has the military capabilities it needs to uphold its territorial integrity and to confront 21st century challenges. Completing the various military agreements we have already agreed to will help us hit that goal. And the United States is pursuing a range of efforts to meet President Trump's commitment to share defense equipment and technology with India, as we do with our closest partners. India's own experience with terrorism is very real. We know that. As the blast that ripped through the Sri Lankan churches last Easter Sunday have shown, terrorism is a constant in this region, and India's ability to fight it should be second to none. Our teams will continue to work together to improve information sharing, intelligence sharing, and strengthen India's ability to fight terrorism. And on that subject, I just came, as the Foreign Minister said, from Kabul. At the core of America's Afghanistan talks is a resolve that terrorists can never again exploit Afghanistan for their evil purposes. We are intensely grateful for India's advice and support to ensure that we are successful in this endeavor. Great friends are bound to have disagreements. The United States has been clear we seek greater market access and the removal of trade barriers in our economic relationship. And today I address these differences in the spirit of friendship, and I think that the two of us will be able to see a good outcome for each of our two countries. And we'll keep working to resolve any economic disputes, not only those that we have at this moment, but those that when any significant trading relationship inevitably arise. Look, we've got to get this piece right, the economic piece right, because there are a myriad of opportunities that lay before us in the Indo-Pacific region. Countries in this part of the world which have signed on to the Belt and Road projects have found Beijing's deals come not with strings attached, but with shackles. Countries are looking to provide infrastructure, digital connectivity, and energy supplies to their people without relinquishing their sovereignty. We, together, should act quickly to fulfill the ambitious vision for prosperity that's shared by President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, not just for our own people, but for the good of the region and the world. I know this, when 1.7 billion people in the world's two largest democracies come together, we can do great things, and I look forward to working with you on them. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, Minister, you brushed on the subject of Iran. This has been a pressing issue for the United States right now, almost crisis mode. And you mentioned, India gets about 10% of its oil imported traditionally from Iran. How significant was Iran part of your discussions today? You mentioned the word common ground discussing about trade. Minister, was there any discussion or areas of common ground in how the West and India confronts Iran? And maybe you could also discuss some of the areas of disagreement. And I would just have one follow-up on the issue of trade. Was there any discussion about the U.S. lifting President Trump's decision to end having India on the GSP and reversing that decision? Thank you.
I'll take the second one. You can take the first one. We didn't discuss the lifting of that. What we agreed we would do was we'd go work through the problem set. That we'd go, there are tariffs and counter tariffs, and we said we're going to do our best to make sure that all the right people get in all the right places and work through these problem sets so that we can get out of this and get on with the business of growing each of our two economies.
You know, again, it's a little bit of a repetition, but really, I mean, we have a certain perspective on Iran, obviously, from where we are based, and, you know, the Secretary shared with me the American concerns on Iran. I would say, you know, frankly, I guess both of us certainly came out much better informed of each other's concerns in that regard. In terms of common ground, though I used it for trade, we have common ground on energy as well. I mean, for us, it is important that global energy supplies remain predictable, that they remain affordable. And I think that's a concern to which Secretary Pompeo was certainly very, very receptive. I think he understands that this is today the world's 5th largest economy, which imports 85% of its energy, a large part of it from the Gulf. So I think he certainly gets, I guess I'm speaking for him, but I think looking at his face, he certainly gets what our interests are.
I'll just add on Iran, Chris. Look, we all know that we need to keep that waterway open for the reasons that were just described. We also know that Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terror. And we know the Indian people, they have suffered from terror around the world. So I think there's a shared understanding of threat and a common purpose to ensure that we can keep energy at the right prices and deter this threat, not only the threat in the narrow confines of the Middle East, but the threat that this terror regime poses to the entire world.
Secretary Pompeo, earlier today, 2 U.S. service members were killed in Afghanistan. This comes a day after you were in that country. Do you have any response? The Taliban has said this was an ambush on their part. Is this going to affect the talks this week at all?
I saw the reports of the 2 U.S. service members who were reported to have been killed. This is tragic. My condolences certainly go out to them. I'm praying for them, for their families, and for all the soldiers that were around them. I think this drives home the need for us to be successful, right? The mission set that we've undertaken in Afghanistan is a reconciliation to reduce the level of violence, to reduce the level of risk to Afghans broadly, and the risk to American service members. And so I think what you'll see is a continued push by the United States to achieve the reconciliation and the reduction in risk that the President set out as the mission set for the State Department and for the United States government.